Well, good afternoon, everyone. I am Barb Jeffries with the Rotary Club of Park Cities, here to welcome you to our 17th meeting of the year. We are glad to have you. We hope that we have some guests watching as well today. If you are watching and would like to learn a little bit more about our club, our website is parkcitiesrotary.org. Lots of good information out there of all of the good things that we do for the community. We are going to start this meeting. I'm going to start off with the invocation followed by the pledge and the prayer given today by club member John Brown. Following that, you'll see Mark Kasher on the screen. He'll be telling us about today's marketplace advertiser. After Mark, Kyle Marmillion will be up to talk to us about our Park Cities Foundation and all the good work that we do and the club's involvement in that. And then Happy Franklin will be up to tell us all the exciting upcoming events coming up for the month of November and December. Well, here we go.
Almighty and ever-loving God, we give you thanks for all the blessings you have poured upon us. Most especially, we give you thanks for the country we call home and for the liberty and justice we too often take for granted. Help us to come together as a united people following the advice of John Wesley in 1774 to vote for the person you judged most worthy, to speak no evil of the person you voted against, and to take care your spirit is not sharpened against those that voted on the other side. Let us apply the principles of the four-way test to all our fellow Americans as we celebrate our right to freely vote for those we judge most worthy. All these things we ask in your holy name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This week, we've got a new advertiser, and if you want to be a new advertiser as well, we've got a few spots available. Please give me a call. But this week's spotlight is Kathy Wall with State Farm, proudly serving Highland Park, University Park, and the surrounding Dallas area. In her 27 years as a State Farm agent, she's built an insurance agency team of 11 dedicated, personable insurance professionals. Her team has more than 150 years of combined insurance experience to help customers with service and claims. Kathy's team serves families of all ages with auto insurance, homeowners insurance, renters insurance, life insurance, and more. They work with people in all ages and stages of life, from retirement, working families, young and growing families, to adults just starting out on their own. She's a small business owner herself, and her team and Kathy work with many small business owners with needs for their business. Their customers love her because she has a decades-long track record of showing up day or night, ready to help no matter what happens, and whether it's unexpected or not. She'll do it for you too. So let's thank Kathy Wall for her advertising in the Hub this week. Kathy Wall is on Lover's Lane, and she can't wait to serve you as well.
Hi, everyone. Happy Friday. Hope you're having a great week. Quick reminder on the PCRC Foundation. We're doing very well, and we like to take the opportunity to remind everybody on the month of their birthday to go ahead and make their contributions. You can do that by going to the website and following the link, or you can mail checks payable to the RCPC Foundation. Thanks so much for your support in this, and we can't do it without you. Have a great weekend.
Hi there, happy Friday. We'd love for you to join us on Saturday, November 14th at the Dallas Arboretum. We're going to tour, dine, and enjoy holiday at the Arboretum. It's going to be fabulous. Please bring your friends and family. It's from 10:30 to 2:30. If you are a member of the Dallas Arboretum, you get in free, and it's free parking. If you are not a member, you'll need to get the $10 parking pass, and you'll need to get gate admission. I have a link to all that on the website. I'm also going to be sending out an email so you can get signed up. We want to make sure to have a really good group of people out there at the Dallas Arboretum. There's plenty of room for social distancing. We're going to have a great lunch. You get to choose your sandwich. There's plenty of room for us to eat together and have social distancing. So please put that on your calendar, Saturday, November 14th. We are also very excited about the holiday party. We're going to have the holiday party this year at the Salvation Army. It'll be our annual meeting at the Salvation Army and our holiday party. So that's Friday, December 4th, 11:30 to 1:15. You get to bring fun items to donate, and we'll have a list of those items that you can donate and really make a difference in a lot of the clients of the Salvation Army. You can also make a monetary donation. We'll have that link available to you. So some of the items that are needed are new underwear and socks, all sizes, coats for boys, size 6 through 10. And we're going to have holiday music. You're going to have chili. There's going to be lots of desserts. It's going to be a really fun time for us just to get together. They have capacity for 100 people. So feel free to bring your spouse, your significant other, your kids, your friends, your neighbors. It's going to be a lot of fun. And then afterwards, so that's on Harry Hines, and just a short distance away is the Salvation Army Christmas Distribution Center. We'll be able to get a tour of the Salvation Army Christmas Distribution Center right after our holiday party. It'll start at 1:30. The distribution center is just 5 minutes away, so we'll get a tour of the facility so you can see how everything happens with all the Salvation Army Angel Tree items. We'll get to help sort those items, collect those items. It's going to be a really nice opportunity. So we're going to get a tour first Friday after our holiday party. It's going to be a short tour, so it shouldn't impact your day too much. And then on Saturday, we're going to have a volunteer shift at the Christmas Distribution Center from 9 to 12, and we'll get to help sort items and collect items that are being donated just as they're driving up to donate items. And so it's going to be lots of great opportunities for us to still see each other, have volunteer opportunities, and have fun. Please put those on your calendar, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to our home away from home here at Sync Lab Studios with Mark Neace and his business partner, Scott. As you know, we had a wonderful run at Maggiano's. We had 5 great Friday meetings in person during the month of October. We have switched back now to virtual meetings for the month of November and then part of December. So November 13th and 20th, we'll be here, and you'll be there joining us each week. And then on November 27th, celebrate Thanksgiving with your families. And then after that, let me back up just 1 week to Friday, November 20th. That's going to be our annual meeting as required by our bylaws. It's during that meeting that we vote on the slate of officers for next year. It's that time already for 2021, 2022 Board of Directors and Officers. So that will be a club-wide Zoom call. We'll figure out a way for you all to cast your vote, whether it's a thumbs up or a yay or a nay. And then after that, we're really excited about Sunday, November 22nd. We are going to be back at the UP Snyder Plaza for the tree lighting event. It's a little modified this year, much like everything has been in our lives. Scaled back. It's going to be a drive-by. a toy drop for the Salvation Army. The information will be on our website. We're needing 2 groups of you, our members, to volunteer to help make that event happen. The first group is going to get together beforehand to put together the swag bags or the things that will give the community who are so kind as to drive up with the toys for the Salvation Army. And then the other is the people to be there that day to accept those bags and then put them in one of the storefronts for storage until the Salvation Army picks them up. So it's going to be a great event. Back to a little bit of club business. Half yearly dues are due on November 30th. So those of you that make your payments twice a year, that $180 is due by the end of November, please. And then we're excited about this group. As you all know, Barbara Markham and her calling team made a round of phone calls for us in August this year, a few months ago. And I think it's time to touch base with all of our membership again, make sure everyone's doing okay, and get your opinion on a couple of things, ideas we have floating out there. One being what to do starting in January and the arrangement that we will have at Maggiano's going forward. So all of you can watch for those phone calls. They will not be spam calls. They'll be from either Barbara Markham or one of her wonderful team of volunteers, just touching base. If you will remember, please, that if you've got some joys or concerns, please let me know. And as we pre-record those invocations the next couple of weeks, we'll make sure that your joy or your concern is mentioned and the club can join in that. Prayers for or celebrations for those events in your lives. Well, with that, I am going to turn this program over to Mark Neace. We're going to put him in front of the camera. He is today's chair of the day, and so he will be introducing our speaker today. Okay, Mark, take it away.
Today I'm happy to introduce Brain Cuban, the younger brother of Dallas Mavericks owner and entrepreneur Mark Cuban. He's also a Dallas-based attorney, author, and addiction recovery advocate. He's a graduate of Penn State University and the University of Pittsburgh School of Law. Brian has been in long-term recovery from alcohol, cocaine, and bulimia since April of 2007. His first book, Shattered Image, My Triumph Over Body Dysmorphic Disorder, chronicles his first-hand experiences living with and recovering from 27 years of eating disorders and body dysmorphic disorder. His most recent best-selling book, The Addicted Lawyer, Tales of the Bar, Booze, Blow, and Redemption, is an unflinching look back at how addiction and other mental health issues destroyed his career as a once successful lawyer, and how he and others in the profession redefined their lives in recovery and found redemption. He's spoken at colleges, universities, conferences, nonprofits, legal events across the United States and in Canada. He's also appeared on prestigious talk shows like The Katie Couric Show, as well as numerous media outlets around the country. And he writes extensively on these subjects. His columns and quotes have appeared on CNN.com, FoxNews.com, The Huffington Post, Above the Law, The New York Times, and in online and print newspapers around the world. As we enter the holiday season, many people around us will be even more susceptible to their challenges with addiction and mental health. I hope that you will be inspired by Brian's message and his challenge to all of us to intentionally sow seeds of kindness and care in our community. Please join with me in welcoming Brain Cuban.
It's such an honor to be here talking to you today. I am so appreciative of the opportunity. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey as a practicing lawyer and law student and college student that has taken me through so many obstacles, ups and downs, and has allowed me to redefine who I am and build resilience. And a lot of the story is going to be about resilience. And to start it off, I want to take everyone back to June of 2006. The Dallas Mavericks are going to the NBA championship for the very first time. My brother Mark had bought the team in January of 2000, and we had had some success, but it was our first trip to the quote-unquote big show. And as you might imagine, I was going to get some pretty good seats for those games. I also had the opportunity to get some tickets for friends. Do you think I gave them to my friends? Nope. You're probably thinking I sold them on eBay for some astronomical amount. I didn't do that either because that would be disrespectful to my brother, to the team. I took those 2 tickets and traded them to my drug dealer for $1,000 in cocaine. Selling them on eBay was disrespectful, but trading them to my drug dealer, perfectly acceptable in my mind, how the mind works in addiction. My dealer shows up at my house. I was high class, he delivered. He hands me this giant Ziploc baggie of cocaine. I give him the tickets. I go running up to my home office. I dump it out all on my desk, looking at it, this giant kingdom of cocaine, like I'm Scarface. I wanted to go rub a little on my nose there. Of course, I bought it for a reason. I have to do some. I line it out. I roll up the dollar bill. And it's funny, people who are addicted to cocaine are a weird bunch. We wash our hands, especially in the COVID era. We'll use hand sanitizer in the bathroom, but we'll shove a dollar bill up our nose that's been God knows where, used by God knows who, and snort cocaine out of it. Yeah, weird, huh? But cocaine had long stopped giving me the feeling of self-love and confidence and acceptance that I achieved when I did it in the bathroom in Dallas, Texas, the summer of 1987 for the very first time. It instantly became psychologically addicted to it. Not physically dependent, that would come later. But at this point, all these years later, it was just pain and shame, chasing a high, trying to capture that moment again, that moment that was never going to come again. And there was also the paranoia of long-term cocaine use. Do I hear the cops outside? Woo, woo, woo. I go to my window and I peek out the shades. No cops, but I'm paranoid. I take the cocaine, I hide it in a closet. I drive to a Home Depot in Dallas and I buy electrical faceplate outlets, a drill, and a saw. I drive back to my house. I go upstairs to the closets in the different rooms in the house, to the drywall with the saw and the drill, bzz, 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 and I cut these rectangular fake electrical outlets in the drywall. And I put the cocaine in smaller Ziploc baggies, hide it, and close it back up bzz, 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 behind all of these fake electrical outlets, thinking I'm the smartest lawyer ever. Like the DEA, the cops, and the drug dogs have never thought of that before, right? My 20th year as a practicing lawyer, deep in cocaine addiction, alcoholism, and other mental health issues, which is not unusual for lawyers because we know from a recent study that over 20% of lawyers suffer from alcoholism, over twice the normal rate. Yes, you heard that right, 20%, about 21. And if you're a millennial lawyer, it goes up over a third. Whew. And then came the paranoia again. This time it's really the cops. I go back to the electrical outlets. Bzz, 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 bzz. I take the cocaine out, put it back in the giant Ziploc baggie, go to the bathroom in my master bedroom, flush it down the toilet again. Flush it down the toilet. Now $900 in cocaine. The next morning comes, and as so often happens when a perceived negative event gets in the rearview mirror with surrounding addiction, I wake up. Did I really flush all that cocaine down the toilet last night? Who does that? I'm such an idiot. There's another game tonight, and I'm out of cocaine. I call my brother Mark. Sure, Bri, come on over. 2 more tickets. I call my drug dealer. He shows up at my house. He said, dude, you did all that last night? I didn't want to tell him I had flushed it down the toilet. I said, yes, I did it all. Give me more. Okay, man, here you go. Back up to my home office, rinse, wash, repeat, dump it out on the desk. One more time, line it out. But again, just chasing the high, just pain and shame. And it was never that maybe I have a problem. It was, well, maybe I need to change drug dealers. This is my 20th year as a practicing lawyer. Maybe I need to switch out the Grey Goose for the Jack Daniels to find that right mix that those of us who are addicted to cocaine understand so well. Got to get the right brand of alcohol with the right brand of cocaine. It's important. And that was more important than sobriety or my career. But it was just pain and shame. And paranoia again. I go and I hide the cocaine again. I take it back out again. I go to the bathroom again and drop to my knees like I'd done so many times before, hoping, wishing, praying for someone or something to take away the pain of my addiction, my depression, my self-hatred, and flushed it all down the toilet again. They say when Dallas flushes, it ends up in Houston. So people in Houston might have had a little kick in their step last night. The quote unquote insanity of addiction, doing things the same way over and over again and expecting a different result. But addiction's not insane, right? It's a biological brain-based process that affects so many of us. Loved ones, our children, our friends, our spouses, ourselves, millions of people around the country. Everyone watching me is probably affected or knows somebody impacted in some way, whether it's immediate or a couple people down. And it wasn't just drug addiction for me. At 18 years old, as a freshman at Penn State, I developed an eating disorder, bulimia. Yes, guys do get eating disorders. About 25 to maybe up to 40 or 50% of all those with eating disorders are male. Bet you didn't know that. By the time I was 22 at Penn State, I was a quote unquote alcoholic. At 26, I was addicted to cocaine. By the time I was 44, my first of 2 trips to a psychiatric facility after a near suicide attempt, 3 failed marriages, one where I get a free set of steak knives, and then finally recovery in 2007. How does that happen? How does a young boy born in the baby boomer era in Pittsburgh, PA, at a time when social networking was playing dodgeball on the basketball court on the blacktop, when cell phones were 2 cups attached to a string, how does that happy little boy grow to someone in his 40s so horrified at his reflection in the mirror, who hated himself so much, who saw so little hope in his life that he decided he would be doing his family a favor by ending his life by suicide? Well, we have to go back to that little boy in Pittsburgh, PA in the 70s. Baby boomer. I'm the middle of 3 boys. A lot of you probably know my older brother, Mark, the Dallas Mavericks and Shark Tank. I have a younger brother, Jeff. Mark, as you might expect growing up in Pittsburgh, he was outgoing, selling this door to door, selling that door to door. I remember our newspaper went on strike. He and his buddies, barely old enough to drive, drove from Pittsburgh to Cleveland, about 200 miles or so, bought their newspapers, brought them back to Pittsburgh, sold them on a street corner in downtown Pittsburgh for twice what they paid for them. He knew how to see opportunity and fill a void then, and he knows how to now. My younger brother, Jeff, was a nationally ranked wrestler, good-looking jock, beer parties, prom, dates, all the things that I associated with love and acceptance. And I was classic middle child syndrome. I was brutally shy. I was withdrawn. And I internalized anything said to me and about me that was negative and wore it as who I was, like this skin-tight suit. And unfortunately, I also had a difficult relationship with my mom. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this, but I want to make it clear that I do not blame my mother for the things I went through. Parents do not cause addiction. Parents do not cause eating disorders. There is a difference between cause and correlation. Some people will go through similar things that I went through and suffer and deal with mental health issues later in life. Some it won't impact at all. That's why it's correlation. Parents don't cause these things. But things that go on in the home can correlate with later in life issues. And that happened to me. There was a lot of fat shaming in my house. I used to come home from school, middle school, and I would eat Chef Boyardee ravioli out of the can. Do they still have that? Chef Boyardee or beefaroni, the old style can opener, go, get the spoon. My mom would come home from selling real estate, and she would see me doing that and say, Brian, if you keep eating that way, you're going to be a fat pig. Now, these were the things my mother's mother said to her. These were the things my great-grandmother said to my grandmother. I came from an Eastern European Jewish family from the old country, very dysfunctional relationship around food, very important. And my mother had a very verbally and mentally abusive relationship with her bipolar mother. And my mother struggled with her own mental health issues. And so a lot of this stuff runs downhill, right? It wasn't her fault. It wasn't her fault. She was trying to deal with her issues at a time when a woman talking about depression or bipolar or this or that, you could get put in an asylum. And so we didn't talk about these things. No one talked about them. But not understanding all of this, I grew depressed and I began to eat more Chef Boyardee ravioli and more Chef Boyardee ravioli, and I became a bigger Brian and a bigger Brian. And it so often happens when kids change for what other kids perceive in the negative at school, the bullying started, the fat shaming, the fat teasing. Although in those days, going viral meant 15 kids in the lunchroom knew about it, not like today. But it didn't hurt any less. It did not. And the bullying culminated one day in what I call the day of the gold pants. All of the fat teasing, the fat shaming. My brother Mark had given me a pair of shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants. How many of you have seen John Travolta's Saturday Night Fever, right? Saturday, John in his white, tight-fitting, hugging bell-bottom pants going, hey, and he looked good in them. Brian in those pants, no, don't. I didn't look very good in them. Mark wasn't a big kid, and those pants fit Mark okay. He taught disco back then, so he claims. But these pants, they were tight on me. I had to jump up and down, spray the water bottle. My butt looked like 15 cats trying to get out. But I wore those pants every day to school because my brother gave them to me. They were a symbol of his love. And I didn't care if the kids made fun of me. And they did. They did. And I took it. I developed kind of the sad clown persona, this wall of the self-deprecating sad clown, so these kids wouldn't know how much their taunts hurt me. I created this wall of self-deprecation so the words couldn't get in, couldn't get past the wall. But it did get past, and it hurt. But I just laughed it off. They'd say, Brian, you need to go down to Sears and Roebuck and get a bra for your man boobs. And I just laughed. I'm headed down there right now. I'm walking home from school wearing my shiny gold bell-bottom disco pants with this group of kids. A mile from my house, busy street, they start making fun of them. They decide that I'm just too quote-unquote fat to wear these pants. They start tearing at them. They start pulling at them. The next thing I know, they're physically assaulting me. They rip those pants off me. They tear down on my Fruit of the Loom tighty-whities. They tear them into pieces, and they throw the shreds out in the middle of the busy street. Go on slapping each other on the back, high-fiving like they had done the funniest thing ever. Right down on my Fruit of the Loom tighty-whities, my Pittsburgh Pirates t-shirt, my Keds tennis shoes, and my tube socks. This was the 70s. Tube socks were cool. I went out in the street and I picked up the shreds and I waddled on home, walk, covering up my privates. I get home and I walk down into the basement and it was silent. Nobody was home. It was so quiet. I just tiptoed down in the basement like the neighbors could hear me if I even made a sound. And they would know what had happened just by osmosis. The sound would penetrate the house and they would know my shame. And I get down in the basement and I took those shreds and I put them in the garbage, hoping to hide my shame from my parents, from myself, my brothers, my two brothers, my father, my mother, and never think about it again. And when we talk about how trauma threads through our lives and becomes a basis for maybe resilience later in life, this is a perfect example because I could take each and every one of you to Pittsburgh today, to that spot, and within 5 or 10 feet, show you exactly where those kids did that to me. That is trauma. Trauma remembers. Trauma shapes. And it shaped me quite a bit, that trauma. Although now with resilience, I look at it in a different way and use it to learn and teach, but that wasn't always the case. And as you might imagine, after having that happen, I was so happy to get out of Pittsburgh. I got into Penn State. My dad drives me up to Penn State, away from the bullies. It's going to be a whole new Brian. I'm going to finally get a date. I'm going to finally have a girlfriend. I'm going to make friends. And it's the first day of school. I'm in a dorm. My father's helping me unpack. It's a beautiful day in Pennsylvania. It's cool. It's this long rectangular window. I'm looking out into the parking lot of my dorm, and I make eye contact with this curly, brown-haired girl. She's talking to her friends. Her parents are standing behind her unpacking their trunk. Everyone's getting ready for the first day of school. It's so exciting. I was so excited. And I make eye contact with her, and I start sweating. I imagine my life with this girl within 5 seconds. We're going to date, we're going to get married, and we're going to have 2 1/2 children. Everything is great. It wasn't a smile, it was a smirk. She looks at her friends, looks back at me, her mouth kind of curls up. She puts her hands over her mouth and says, "Ugly, ugly." Now, I am not the first kid to have nasty things said to him. Another kid may have said ugly back. Another kid may have flipped her off. Another kid may have sworn at her. Another kid may have just said whatever. We all react differently based on our social upbringing, our genetics, who we are as a person. And I'm not blaming this girl, right? If it wasn't this, it would have been that. Just like I don't blame my mother. But I was already somebody I already felt ugly. And I remember thinking at that time that my entire life was out of control. Here we go again. I was never going to be loved. I was never going to get the love from my mother, who loved me dearly, but was struggling with her own issues. I was never going to get married. I was never going to have a girlfriend. How can I get control over my life so I can have all of these things? I want these things, right? Those are good things. How can I get control to take those things? Well, I have to not be ugly. How can I not be ugly? I'll lose weight. If I lose weight and I get to look like all these kids in my mind who were the prom king, the prom queens, the athletes. Remember, this is before Al Gore invented the internet, right? My images were the people I saw every day. We didn't have Instagram and Facebook with these airbrush perfect images we want to be like, that don't look like how the people really are anyways. It was the people I saw every day. And I decided that if I lost weight, I would get that girl's affection. So I began to restrict my food intake and restrict. And I quickly transitioned into binging and purging, which is binging on food and then vomiting it up. For those who don't know, the clinical diagnosis for that is bulimia. Before I knew it, I was a guy with bulimia. I didn't know what an eating disorder was. I mean, at that time, this is now 1980, nobody was talking about eating disorders at all, not for men or women. The singer Karen Carpenter, the beautiful singer on Top of the World, if you know that song, eating disorders wouldn't even come into the pre-digital national spotlight until she passed away from complications relating to anorexia in 1983. But here's what I knew. Every time I binged and purged, I felt okay for 10 seconds or 15 seconds. And then the shame would fill the void of that. This god-awful shame of engaging in an act that I didn't understand. I didn't know what an eating disorder was, but I knew that guys, males, it's just not masculine to stick your finger down your throat and throw up. But I had to do it because I needed that feeling of peace of 10 seconds, of 15 seconds. So I kept doing it, the life of a bulimic. And then I began exercising obsessively, exercise bulimia, obsessive compulsive exercise for the primary purpose of offsetting calories, running 10 miles a day, 20 miles a day while I'm binging and purging as well. I moved into my early 20s and I wasn't feeling any better about myself. The self-hatred was growing and I began drinking to quell it. I was old enough to drink now in Pennsylvania. We have state stores. I would go to the state stores at Penn State and State College, PA, and I would buy bottles of tequila. I would put it in my pocket and I would go out on the town and I would drink these bottles of tequila in my dorm by myself in my apartment as I got older in my apartment. And I would get drunk and then go into these back alleys and get drunk and get drunker to go into the bars and get drunker. And I was showing up for class drunk. I was showing up for class hungover. I remember at Penn State, the closest I ever came to any epiphany on recovery was walking into a hamburger joint. I think it was a White Tower or a White Castle. And there was a rack of pamphlets that the 12-step groups put out. And for those who don't know, the largest of the 12-step groups, alcohol-focused 12-step groups, is Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was called the 20 Questions. And it was geared towards college students. And if you answer these many questions, yes, you might have a drinking problem. Call us. Come to a meeting. Call us. Here's the number. And I'm checking off all these questions. Do you black out? Yes. Do you mix class? Yes, yes. All I can think of to justify, I'm just a college student. We all do this. 2 points. My tryout for the Mavs. And that's how my life at Penn State went. As an alcoholic, as a bulimic, and an exercise bulimic, I was beginning to experience bouts of major depression. Not quite the recipe for success. I was a criminal justice major. I wanted to be a police officer. That would have worked out well. I'd have been the first guy in the evidence room training out the Manitow for the blow, believe me. And I'm sitting in the placement office one day, looking at police officer jobs, and there are 2 guys next to me. They're talking about taking the law school admission test, and I'm listening to them. The bells start going off in my head. Not that I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers. I had no desire to be a lawyer. I didn't know this was the first time I ever thought about it. The bells of, I can stay in school 3 more years. Law school's 3 years. I can stay in school 3 more years, and I can binge and purge. I can drink. I can exercise. I can run my 20 miles a day, and I can engage in the exact same behaviors that allowed me to survive day to day, moment to moment, second to second, at Penn State, looking no further than the tip of my nose, because that is all I knew. I didn't know graduation. I didn't know this life after. I just knew survival. And these things were my survival blanket. And if I stayed in school 3 more years, I could keep my survival blanket. So I took the law school admission test, and I miraculously did well enough to get into Pitt Law. And I go into Pitt Law with these destructive behaviors. And as you might imagine, I was able to do okay at Penn State because I could pull an all-nighter the night before an exam, even with the mess I was, give back the information the next day, and get a good grade. That doesn't work in law school. No. I barely graduated. I was showing up to class drunk, hungover, and trying to pull all-nighters, and literally, I graduated at the very bottom of my class. It was so close that I still have reoccurring nightmares of the dean of my law school I go to get my diploma at graduation, and the dean jerks it back going, "Psych, you didn't graduate, you didn't graduate." And I wake up going for my diploma, and I'm sweating. But I did graduate, and I did graduate as an alcoholic, bulimic, and as someone, once again, who couldn't see further than the tip of his nose. But now I have to go through the same process again. What am I going to do with my life? I took the Pennsylvania bar and once again miraculously passed it. I didn't study. And don't do that. If you're going to law school, or your kids going to law school, study. Don't do what I do or what I did. But I didn't want to stay in Pennsylvania for obvious reasons. I associated it with so much pain and shame. So what am I going to do? I will pick up and I will move to Dallas, Texas. Labor Day 1986, because my brother Mark had already moved there. My brother Jeff had already moved there. They were living together. I would go there, move in with them, and their love would save me. I would be with the only people who didn't judge me. That was my ticket to redemption, to being the Brian that I wanted to be, even if I didn't know what that was at that time. And so with $100 to my name, I took a Greyhound bus. Mark met me at the bus station. I moved down in downtown Dallas, and it was like throwing gasoline on a fire because they're out dating. This is the mid 80s. They're out having a great time. And I fit right in. My drinking escalated. And then in the summer of 1987, in the Crescent Hotel in downtown Dallas, in their bathroom of a nightclub used to be called Bone Ash there, I discovered the one thing that for the first time in my life allowed me to look in the mirror and love myself. For the first time in my life to look in the mirror and not hate myself. I discovered cocaine. I did my first line of cocaine in that bathroom, and it was Katie bar the door. All of a sudden, I love myself. All of a sudden, everyone loved Brian. My mother loved Brian. Of course, she did anyways. The girls upstairs loved Brian. In the bar, everyone did. That curly brown-haired girl loved Brian. But most importantly, Brian loved Brian. And Brian had to love Brian again and again and again. In order for that to happen, I had to do cocaine again and again and again. And cocaine and alcohol took over my life as a practicing lawyer in Dallas, Texas. I failed the Texas bar exam twice, or actually 2.5 times, so 3 times, all as a result of my penchant for using drugs and drinking more than studying. The first time I took the Texas bar exam, my study aids in a hotel room in Fort Worth the weekend of the exam were 3.5 ounces of cocaine, otherwise affectionately known as an 8-ball, a fifth of Jack Daniels, a liter of Tab, which they just discontinued. Oh, I hate that. And some bar review books I borrowed that day. Yeah, and I failed it again before I finally passed as a lawyer. And my career as a lawyer was, as you might expect, it had some ups and downs financially, but the finances, even though I did well good years, they were not related to an ethical practice of law because I was doing whatever I had to do, whether it was unethical or ethical, to get the money I needed to get to fund my drug and alcohol and partying habits. You're all wondering, has this guy been disbarred or had his license suspended? No, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. And I say that tongue in cheek, but it is a very real consequence of lawyers who struggle and wait for the consequences to catch up to the problem when they don't seek help for their drug and alcohol use, as many of us in the profession struggle with, as that study I cited tells you. And for me, it was the same. I was doing cocaine in the state courthouse, in the bathroom. I was taking cocaine into the federal courthouse, yes. Weren't you afraid of getting caught? Well, I knew I could. I'm a lawyer, right? Being addicted to cocaine doesn't mean I lose my brain cells. Well, some of them. But of course, what's the definition of addiction? Obsessive compulsive drug-seeking behavior in the face of known consequences. Of course I knew the consequences, but I couldn't stop. Yeah, when you're walking in the federal and state courthouse with drugs, you know, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. I knew I could go to prison. And I was showing up at hearings hungover and under the influence of cocaine. I remember snorting cocaine on the side of a highway because I had a panic attack on my way to a TRO hearing that I got a temporary restraining order hearing. I got a surprise call in the morning from when I'd been up doing cocaine all night. And I eventually lost all my clients. And in the summer of 2005, I became so despondent that I would never, ever look in the mirror and love myself without the aid of alcohol or drugs, that I decided to end my life by suicide. And it was close. My 2 brothers came into my house, and there was a .45 automatic on my nightstand, drugs everywhere. They picked me up, took me kicking and screaming down to a psychiatric hospital here in Dallas. They're trying to save my life. I just want them to get out of my life. And they couldn't hold me because I knew what to say, not a danger to myself, not a danger to others. They did what I call the Cuban rehab. They drove me back home. They say, we took your car keys, stay in your house for 2 weeks and everything will be okay. That's not how it works, but my family's no different, trying to figure it out. And the only thing I thought was, well, my drug dealer delivers, no problem. The Dallas Mavericks tickets guy. And so they leave and I'm right back at it. And now I just distance from them, not seeing them, not seeing my father, not seeing my nieces and nephews, and only hanging out with the people I did drugs with. And really just barely surviving. No clients left. Just day to day, moment to moment, second to second, nose in front of the face. Sound familiar? In the summer of 2006, I was out at one of my week-long birthday parties that started when the cocaine, or January 2006, I'm sorry, when the cocaine started and when the cocaine ended. And I'm out at this bar in Texas, in Dallas, and I meet this girl. Her name's Amanda. We start talking. She doesn't know any of my issues. She doesn't drink heavily, social. She doesn't do drugs. But I was able to fool her for a little bit. She moved in with me. And I was able to continue to hide my drug use. I had a JD, but I had a PhD in that. Easter weekend 2007, she went away for the weekend. I go out, and the next thing I know, it's 2 days later. I'd had a drug and alcohol-induced blackout. She's home. I'm lying in bed. She's looking down at me. There's drugs everywhere. There's alcohol everywhere. I'm wondering if I walked in the right house. She's probably wondering, she's wondering if she walked in the right house. I'm wondering what lie I can tell to explain this law and order orgy of evidence that I might not be the person I proclaim myself to be. All I could think of was for her I said, take me back to Green Oaks Hospital. You've been to Green Oaks Hospital? Yeah, we'll talk about that later. So we go back to Green Oaks, and we're standing in the parking lot, and she's crying. I'm thinking she's gone. And she actually stood by me, and we dated for over a decade. Well, I found recovery, rebuilt the broken trust, and we've now been married over 4 years. So not all relationships will survive that, but ours did, in part one, because she's a saint, and two, because I had to do the work for me, not for her, because people do leave, because loved ones die, pets die, trauma happens, and my recovery had to survive all of that. And I thought about that, and I thought there wasn't going to be a third trip back. And I thought about something my father used to say to us growing up. He said, guys, my father, he'd say, whatever happens in your life, my father was the middle of 3 boys. Pick up that phone, call your brother, tell your brother you love him. Always be there for your brother. My father, a veteran of Okinawa, fought in the Pacific, a veteran of Korea. He understood the bond of family, the bond of brothers. And I couldn't lose that. And I knew I was on the verge of losing it. Not their love, but family's distance, right? When they feel helpless. And I wasn't ready to lose that. And if you want to know how that bond stuck all these years later, decades, 1,200 miles away, Mark, Jeff, and I all lived walking distance to each other. And until my father passed 2 years ago, July, he lived across the street from me. And I don't mean metaphorically. I mean across the street. And I knew it was time. So the next day, I began getting honest with my therapist, and I walked in the room of 12-step. And the largest, most well-known 12-step is Alcoholics Anonymous for the first time. And I sat in the chair. And when I sat in that chair, crying and sweating and smelling, I didn't know whether I was an alcoholic. Here's what I wanted sitting in that chair the first time. And I didn't care if I was an alcoholic, but here's what I care about. Here's what meant more to me that first day. If sitting in that chair in that room would allow me, for the first time in my life, the first time, wake up, birthday suit naked, walk to the mirror in my bathroom, look at my reflection in the mirror, and without the aid of drugs or alcohol, love Brian. If sitting in that room would allow me to do that for the first time in my life, I would sit in that room. And I sat, and I sat, and I sat. I engaged in intensive therapy, allowing myself to be vulnerable with my therapist, crying, getting honest with my family. And I began to learn from all these snapshots and experiences, and I began to understand that these were things that built resilience in me. And these were things that, well, I do regret the collateral damage. I look back and do I regret that path? No. I try to make living amends to the collateral damage by trying to change the world today with a little bit of acts of kindness, trying to help one person who may then help another person, trying to give a bit of what I've learned, to pay it forward, change a little. It's a Kabbalistic term. It's called tikkun olam in the Jewish tradition, changing the world with acts of kindness. And I have tried to do that through the resilience building books that my path have taught me. And the message I'd leave everyone here with is that everyone here, the trauma is subjective. Everyone has gone through trauma. And especially as we sit in quarantine, we're going through so many traumatic times. I encourage you to reach out and try to change a little part of the world with an act of kindness. And I'm going to give you a tool to do that. It's called the 2 Ask Rule. Sometime this week, whether it's your spouse, your child, your friend, reach out to someone and say, how are you doing today? Whether it's by Zoom or a phone call or however you want to do it. How are you doing today? And before that conversation breaks, don't let the person, if the person may say, I'm fine, it's all good, say, do you know that if you need to talk, I am here for you? The 2 Ask Rule. And what you have done with the 2 Ask Rule is you have become a cog in changing the world with acts of kindness. And that cog may not take effect immediately. The person may go on, but the next person may say, if the person after you does that too and use the 2 Ask Rule, and then the next person, it could be 4 people down, when that person who is struggling says, yes, I need someone to talk to you. You know who started that chain? Do you know who started that cumulative change of kindness? You did. Start it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for an inspiring message and for challenging us with the 2 Ask Rule. As a thank you for speaking to us today, we will be placing a book in the Preston Hollow Elementary School Library in your honor. Please join us next week for an informative program featuring Tom Thornfinson, RI Chief Strategist, and Stephanie Bohan, Linda Tunnell, and Lee Wagner with an update on the Bonton Medical Clinic. Now, if you would please rise and join me in the 4-way test. Of the things we think, say, and do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Today's meeting is now adjourned. Have a great weekend.